told him everything, you know. White whiskey in it good, and the unconditional love for family raised on backbone roots. Always trying to make enough. 60. My family moved 2,000 and 3,000 gallons of liquor a week. Now you got to be making some liquor to move that much liquor.
Y'all made it different from.
Oh yeah.
We made it with corn.
Yeah.
Corn and syrup.
Yeah.
Corn liquor.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, corn liquor won't turn out like sugar liquor will. And when you're doing it for distribution, you want to make as much as you can for as low cost as you can. So that was sort of a cheap liquor, you know. But
what was that old guy in Atlanta that killed all them people?
That was Fayette County.
Yeah.
But now, you know, people talk about that.
Alcohol, battery acid.
No, I'm gonna tell you about Fayette County. I know all about it. Fayette never distilled any liquor like this. He mixed it in the bathtub. What Fayette was doing, he was buying grain alcohol. You know, grain alcohol is 180 proof.
Right.
And he was cutting it with water in the bathtub and bottled it. And Fayette couldn't read. And somebody sold him a shipment of alcohol, but it was wood grain alcohol.
Right.
And he didn't know. And when he mixed it up, he killed some people and blinded some and crippled some. You know,
he went to jail for that.
He died in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah. I talked to a revenue officer last year before last one, down here. He from Talbotton. He said he was working on that case with Fayette Hardy. He knew Fayette Hardy. And he worked that case. And he said Fayette Hardy was a fine man, good, honest man. But said he made a bad mistake because he couldn't read and used the wrong alcohol and killed all them people.
It was in Atlanta that he did that.
East Point, I think.
Right. Atlanta area. Yeah.
But you know, he lived upstairs in an apartment.
That's been years ago.
Yeah. But he lived upstairs in an apartment, and what he was doing, he was mixing that stuff in the bathtub and rejugging it up and selling it. He could take a gallon 180 proof alcohol, I mean that grain alcohol, he could make 3 or 4 gallons to look at it.
Then this
preacher, he wanted to shoot some video. We'd already shot some over in Miss Quimby's old log cabin. We set it up in there and put lights in there and fixed it up with me and Keith sat in there and told stories, you know. So he wanted to come down here and shoot the still being put together. So we put it all together and they shot all that. So last night, he wanted to come back and shoot some night video, you know, just sitting around the fire telling stories. The deal was, when all the storytelling was ending, somebody was going to pour a bucket of water on the fire to distinguish the fire, and that was going to be the end of the. Well, when whoever poured the bucket of water on that, somebody hollered, the revenuers are coming. And then I don't know what made me say it, but I said, I don't know, the preacher doing it. And I won't never forget one night, Daddy had a still down on the creek below the house. And it was cold, it was below freezing that night. And him and a couple of my cousins were down there running. I was, I guess, 10 years old. I was too small to beat the still with them. But Randall and his crew come in on them down there. Well, Randall took out after Daddy. He'd always go for Daddy, you know. He knew Daddy was fast, and he was fastest to his bunch, so he'd always chase Daddy. And Daddy said he was going down that creek bank just as hard as he could go, and said Randall was right on his feet. And Daddy knew them woods like the back of his hand, you know. He said, son, all I know to do is get in the creek. Daddy's old high banks on the creek, I guess the banks are 4 foot high. In the middle of the night, Daddy jumps off the bank into the middle of that creek. And when he hit the water, he just stopped and went under the bank. The old banks were hollowed out under there, you know. And he said he knew if he kept going down the creek, Randall would just go on down the creek and jump on top of it, but he couldn't run as fast in that creek as he could on the bank. So Daddy, he just went under the bank. Well, Randall couldn't find him. They were shining the lights all up and down the creek, couldn't find him, didn't know which way he went. Daddy was laying up under the bank. But the problem was he didn't get far enough away from the steel. He couldn't move, he couldn't make any noise, and he knew they had to tear that steel up before they would leave, you know.
I could just stay on it.
And this was around midnight, and it was about 3 o'clock in the morning before they got the steel destroyed and moved on. Well, he couldn't come out from under that bank in that cold water until they left. And I won't never forget, he come in that night soaking wet, frozen to death. And Mama got me up to help her, you know, and we stripped the clothes off of him. He was near death. He just got so cold. And we took the electric blanket off the bed and wrapped him in it, plugged him in the wall, and gave him a gallon of liquor. And he sat there with that blanket around him, drinking on that liquor. About 8 o'clock next morning, Randall knocking on the door, said, "Tony, you got to go with me." He said, "What do you mean go with you?" He said, "Well, I run you last night." He said, "Yeah, but hell, you didn't catch me." He said, "Well, I'm taking you now." He put him in the car and took him on.
Is that when he served 18 months?
No, that was when they caught me and him together. You know, back in the late 60s, around 67, 68, they started experimenting with this aerial photography. There was an aerial photographer and he wanted to be a revenue man. So he had his own plane, and what he would do, he'd go around and fly and see if he could spot steals. Well, he could spot them with that plane. So he got hooked up with some of the revenue men to kind of, I reckon, make a little extra money, you know, fly them around. And me and Daddy had a steal down there below the creek. Well, Daddy did. I was 14 years old. Somehow they took all the pictures from that damn plane at that steal. And we didn't know it. Naturally, the plane just fly over, you don't pay no attention. Well, it went on, and we had some liquor being made, Daddy did, over in Hampton, Georgia, over there. So we went over there one day to see how things were going over there. He had that steal over there and had that one below the house. Me and him was running the one below the house and had some more people run that one over the house. Well, we went over to Hampton to see how things were going. Everything was going all right over there. So on the way back, damn unmarked car pulled us over. Pulled us over on the side of the road. So they told us we had to get out, you know. So they searched the truck and they searched us, couldn't find anything. So they let us go. Well, we still didn't think nothing, you know. So we come on home, and I don't know, a few days later, we had a car to come there, wanted 24 gallons of liquor. Well, we went and got the liquor, loaded the car, and in the meantime, the revenuers had sent a decoy car in to get a load of liquor. Well, we done got that one car out, and the revenue car come in. We were getting ready to load it, and they rushed us. They come in on us. And before we ever got their car loaded, you know. And there was a gallon of liquor in our bathroom. We always kept 1 gallon of liquor in the bathroom in case somebody come along wanted a pint or a quart or half a pint or something. We'd always go in there and pour it up. And if the law ever come in on us, we could run in the bathroom and just pour it down the commode. But anyway, we were all out there in the yard getting ready to go down and get the liquor to load this other car with. And there was a barbed wire fence about, I don't know, about 75 yards, I guess, from the edge of the yard. And I just happened to look up, and there was about 8 or 9 men coming over that fence. And there was green fatigue. Well, I hollered, and when I hollered, Daddy never did run. Daddy just stood there in the yard. But I run. What I was trying to do is get in the house and get rid of that gallon of liquor. So when I come in, we had a little open carport there, and when you went in, you went into the kitchen. Well, as soon as you went in that door to the kitchen, you had to make a sharp turn to the right to go through to the dining room. And then another sharp turn to the left to go through the living room, straight in down the hall to the bathroom. So I made it into the kitchen and went to turn to go into the dining room. And one of them revenuers caught me right there in the back of the shirt and snatched me. When he snatched me, he threw me up against the kitchen sink. Well, Mama always she put her dishes in a dish drainer. And the knives, she'd always take, like the butcher knives and the butter knives, she'd turn the points down, just leave the handle stuck up. But when I come around, my hand hit on the butcher knife, on the handle. Well, I don't know whether I meant to cut the old revenue man or I just reflex. Well, when I come around with that butcher knife. Well, when I come around, he done stuck a pistol right there, and I just cleaned my eyes right there with the hammer cocked back.
That made stuff.
And he said, drop that knife, and I dropped that knife. So they locked me and Daddy up. We still didn't know we'd been caught at the steal. And we didn't think they had nothing on us because they didn't catch nothing at the house. So we get on up there, and they said, we got pictures of it. Daddy said, well, I want to see the damn pictures. And they showed them to us, son. They had them things blowed up. They were 4 foot wide and 4 foot tall. Damn, me and him standing right there at the steal, just looking at each other. There was no way to deny it. So we had to go to court, you know.
You couldn't tell me it was strict photography.
No, we had to go to court. So they had us in the courtroom up there. They locked us up, and then we had to go to court. And the old judge called Eddie up. Well, what they done, they give us 2 years apiece. But he told me, said Tony, I told Eddie, said Tony, that boy's underage. So I'm going to take his 2 years and I'm going to give it to you, because you're going to do some time for this. So they give Daddy 4 years and sent me back home. And I kept it going till he got out of prison. I kept
the shine rolling.
Yeah, I kept it rolling till he got back.
Now, was that when you were 14?
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Hampton did you have a steal?
It was out, if you go out 20, out of Hampton, like going to McDonald.
Yeah.
There's I think it's called Rocky Creek. There's a road
dairy right there.
Yeah, it's back down in there off of Rocky Creek. The kids, they were trained from the get-go what to do in case the law comes.
Get out of here.
They would raid ever so often. You never did know when they were coming. They just flood in there with a search warrant. They'd search the house. Like I say, we always kept a gallon look in the house. And in the bathroom, where that gallon always sit, we had took the floor out of the bottom floor out of the closet and made a trap door. That way, when we poured the liquor out, we could lift that up and throw the jug under the house. The house wasn't about that high off the ground. We just throw the jug and just drop the floor back down. Well, I was there one day, I was about 10 years old, and I seen them coming. Back then, the way we would spot them is, I don't know why, but all government cars run them little bitty hubcaps. You never see one, a wheel with a full hubcap. It's got that little hubcap. That old long arrow on the back. Well, I'm always on the watch out and stuff, so I seen that thing coming up the driveway. Had them little bitty hubcaps and that old arrow, and it was just flying coming up the driveway. So I run into the bathroom to do my thing. I poured the liquor, but instead of pouring it down the commode, I poured it in the bathtub. They were pushing me so hard, I didn't have time. I just poured it down the bathtub. Well, I took my jug, and they were just beating the door down on me. And I throwed it under the house. Well, to make it look good, I undone my pants, and I come out pulling my pants up. Well, old Drew White, he was just beating on the damn door. And James Jones, he was the sheriff. He was in the living room serving the papers. And when I opened the door, old Drew looked back at James and said, "That son of a bitch has done poured it out." And James, I said, "Well, what did he pour it out at?" He said, "He poured it down the bathtub." Well, they didn't have nothing because it all went out the drain, you know. But in a way, they made a case against Daddy for it. And so they had to go to court. Daddy had to get a lawyer, you know. And the only lawyer we had back then was old Howard Hanley up in Fayette. Well, he was an alcoholic and drunk. He didn't care which way it went, as long as he got $200 or $300 in it. But anyway, he started the court. And old man Farrell Sams, Dr. Sams up here, the old man's daddy, he used to be a lawyer, but he had retired. And he happened to be at the courthouse that day when we went up there, you know. And he told my daddy, said, "Tony," said, "I ain't got nothing to do." He said, "Do you mind if I sit on the trial with you and maybe I can help you out a little bit?" And Daddy said, "Yeah." Mr. Farrell said, "I need all the help I can get." So here we are in the courtroom. Daddy's sitting there, got old Howard Hanley on one side of him and Farrell Sams on the other. Well, they get Drew White up in the courtroom, you know, and they get him to get up on the stand. And
Diesel
the
pumper.
prosecutor, he questioned him a little bit. Well, when it come time for the defense lawyer, oh, Howard just sat there. He wasn't going to say nothing. Well, Farrell Sams said, "Your Honor, I'd like to question the, I'd like to question you." So Mr. Farrell stood up and he asked him, said, "Mr. White, how do you know that was white liquor that was down that commode? I mean, down that bathtub?" He said, "I took my finger and I rubbed it around in the drain and tasted it." And that old judge looked at him and said, "Mr. White, you mean you stuck your finger? You stuck your finger in a bathtub drain and tasted it?" And about that time, the whole courtroom just broke into laughter, you know. Old judge took it old gavel, bam, 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 case dismissed. Said any man would stick his finger in another man's bathtub and taste it. Said can't be trusted no way. They got it dismissed.